Hey guys, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery, where I'm trying to help you get your practice to the $1,000,000 mark. This is kind of what my desires with doing this podcast and everything else. So if you're not familiar with that, you can go to Podiatry Practice Mastery. I have the Practice Mastery Academy. That's kind of the self-paced thing that you can do. It's super cheap, kind of helping you get there, and you have an opportunity to ask any questions in there. I take those questions and I kind of make content, and that's something that makes it fun for me. I'm going to give you a kind of an advanced technique for Shockwave or for EPAT if you do that in your office. So I like to kind of share what's working and what's not working for me. And one thing, usually the way I do it in our office is, so when I see a patient, let's say with plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis, usually I'm recommending Shockwave in the office. So the first visit, I might start with the general things that we do, like the night splint, the foam rolling, the anti-inflammatories. And then when they come back in 2 to 3 weeks, I'll usually do an ultrasound. It's really the ultrasound, if you've heard me say this, it's really that helps me kind of explain to patients the importance of Shockwave, or doing that, or cortisone if we're talking the plantar fascia. So we kind of then usually what I do is I'll set up the Shockwave. I usually do between 3 and 6 sessions. The way I kind of explain it is that if they've had pain over 6 months, I'll probably need 6 sessions. If they have it under 6 months, usually 3 is enough, and then we'll decide if it's just focused or radial. But really, kind of the advanced technique that's been helping me these days is one would be the I know it sounds kind of funny, the technique of not doing Shockwave and then doing cortisone. I'll kind of explain why, because traditionally we've been doing cortisone for a lot of these things like plantar fasciitis. The challenge is having patients understand the importance of doing a custom orthotic and Shockwave. And I find if you go for everything in order or all together, it's challenging for patients. So a lot of times what I'm going to do the first visit is I may make the recommendation for the orthotics, because in Massachusetts where I'm at, orthotics aren't covered. And so I would do, let's say, doing the cortisone if it's indicated to reduce the inflammation, if they're not wanting to go that course of the Shockwave, if they want to try that or they've heard of that. And then I'll do the foam rolling, night splint, and then I'll also cast them for orthotics or scan them for orthotics. So doing the orthotics first and then the Shockwave later if needed. Now, you might lose a little bit of the Shockwave, but if you look at the finance behind it, like orthotics for us, it's like $600, and it takes me no extra visits. The Shockwave, it's a little bit more, so it's like $750 for the 3 sessions, but it takes me time because I do it, not my staff, so it takes more time out. And they might get better with the cortisone, as we know, but for a lot of patients, the pain comes back. So that's one of the advanced techniques would be not always pushing a Shockwave, and recommending Shockwave if you think they can kind of get better with the cortisone first. It's to do the orthotics. That's my experience, because orthotics aren't covered, nor is Shockwave, and I find that kind of offering everything kind of spooks some of those patients. The other advanced technique is kind of doing, how do you add in office visits? So Shockwave isn't covered, so we charge between $200 to $250, depending if we're doing just radial, it's $200, and then focused is $250 a session. And the challenge I had is, how do I condone doing an office visit when they're already paying that money? And so what I usually do is I do, like, let's say the office visit when I'm seeing them, then I'll schedule the Shockwaves. Okay, so I'll do the first 3 or the first 6. Usually when I'm starting the first Shockwave, I'm also giving them a prescription for physical therapy. Most of my patients, they go to physical therapy after they finish the Shockwave. This is something that works for me. So I do 3 or 6 sessions, and then they go to PT for like 6 weeks, and then I see them back. That's kind of how it is. But where I'm at, it takes them a while to get into physical therapy. So what I do is the first visit, I send them an order for physical therapy prescription, and they make that appointment when they finish the last Shockwave therapy. So that's something that works for me. I don't do an office visit, that one, but then when they're there for the last one, I have this Shockwave kind of last visit sheet. And in this sheet, I say, congratulations, you finished Shockwave. This is what you can do. Like, you can go back to doing some anti-inflammatories, and what you should continue doing, which is like the night splint, foam rolling, stretching, things like that. And then I say, if you're going to do physical therapy, here are the things that you're going to do for physical therapy, and here are the things that you should avoid doing. So I have that written down, and then I say, and next we would do potentially another ultrasound, potentially more shockwave, and then potentially an MRI if you aren't getting better. So I have this all kind of teed up for them in this one page, and I print this out in my treatment sheets, okay? And then it's just basically just all my treatment sheets kind of look the same, and just have our logo on the bottom, and I kind of write these things out. And then my staff prints this, so they know if it's the last visit, they're going to print this. And why do I do this? Well, because I feel like giving them something, kind of in going over kind of what the next plan is, it condones doing an office visit. So I usually do a level 3 office visit on that last shockwave. And I also have them bring this sheet with them when they go to physical therapy, so they know what to avoid. Because I've had some patients, let's say if they're there for Achilles tendonitis, they're doing these like wobble boards or these stretch boards, or going down too deep off the stair, and that aggravates. So it kind of takes all the work I have done and just kind of aggravates it. So there's certain things I don't want them to do, so I put that in there. And so that's kind of my advanced kind of treatment or protocol for Shockwave. I've found Shockwave works for other aspects as well. Traditionally, when I started it, I was only doing it for plantar fasciitis and for Achilles tendonitis and Haglund. So just be aware, insertional Achilles and Haglunds, it hurts a lot more, so you're going to have to tone it down. Otherwise, you're going to just have patients too much pain. But I've had other successes with the other tendons, like peroneals, posterior tibial, but as well like metatarsalgia, capsulitis to the forefoot. And then also another kind of advanced technique is if a patient has a stress fracture or an actual fracture. Some of the patients anywhere where I'm at, they feel they want like an edge. And what I offer to them is I say, hey, if you want to speed up the healing by a week or two, we can do one of these. That would be focused shockwave. And they would be, and then I offer that when they have a fracture. So some patients, they just want that. They feel like they want to do what's quickest, will get them back to activity the quickest. But I find with like metatarsalgia and things like that, it does work as well. Once again, using ultrasound to show the forefoot. There's a lot of other areas that I'm not doing it as much on, and I'd like to hear from other people. I've started to do it at first MPJ, due to like hallux limitus. And the way I explain that is I say it's not going to change the arthritis in the joint, but what it's going to do is it's going to reduce the inflammation and kind of like the bone marrow edema around, and I just say there's like swelling in the bone. That's how I kind of explain it. I say it's not going to change your cartilage, but it's going to make it feel better. So doing it for hallux limitus along with an orthotic is something that I'm doing. I'm not doing it as much for neuromas. I'd love to know if you guys are doing it more for neuromas. I'm not doing this much for neuromas. So those are kind of the things that are working for me. So if you have other advanced techniques that kind of work for you, that are little tips, I'd love to hear of them. You can send me an email down at podiatrypracticemastery.com. And once again, if you haven't checked out that website there, Podiatry Practice Mastery, I'm always putting something new. My desire, what I'm kind of working on, and you might see there if you go there, is I'm trying to work on some type of a accountability group. It might be called a mastermind. It might be something else. But I'm doing a test run with a few people. There's about 4 or 5 in this group, and I appreciate those that are helping me. What we're doing is we're posting stuff. So basically, each week we're posting every day how many patients we saw, kind of how many of the high ticket items we're doing. Like for me, it's orthotics and shockwave. And then what my most valuable patient is. So kind of keeping that to the front of mind. So kind of keeping that focus of the getting to the $1 million mark. And then once a month we post our numbers, kind of what we're doing in our practice. Because the goal to get to $1 million, you have to do 80,000 in production basically to get there. And then the last thing I started to implement recently is I'm asking them, well, what's one action you can take to bring your practice to the $1 million mark? So these little things each week, I think this is better than like just doing a lecture. So just someone talking to you the whole time. I don't like to participate in that. And so I think this way, this kind of one-on-one accountability where you say kind of what you're going to do. And then the next week I ask the same question, like, what are you going to do? And then how did you do the previous week? So mine, for example, this week, as I'm kind of working on Swift, and what I'm going to do, or what I did is I set out, I printed like what are my, all my referral sources, what are the top 20 that bring in 80% of my revenue, like there's like 30 doctors there, and I sent them out this letter. So it's a cover letter, and on the back it's like a pretty letter, I guess, or a pretty visual about Swift, and asking them to refer their Swift patients over. And this is going to go out to them in multiple mailings. So it'll be the same mailing or with a little bit of modification, like first reminder, second reminder, last reminder of them sending that over to us. And it's going to be pretty easy to do. I use a company called ClickSend. So if you're not familiar with it, it's called ClickSend. And kind of the cool thing about it is you basically, from your EMR, you download your patient or your doctor referring list, and you make something you're going to hand out, like a PDF, a two-sided PDF. You upload the PDF, you upload this list. Now, one of the points that was a little bit of a pain for me, when I downloaded the list, it was like doctor last name, comma, first name in the Excel spreadsheet. And so I had to switch it around. If you just Google or go to like YouTube, there's an easy way to create like a formula. So first what it does is at that comma, it splits it, and then it inverts it, and you can make the list a little bit easier. And then you kind of reuse that list multiple times, and it kind of has this mail merge type of function. Anyway, those are the thoughts this week. I'd love to know your feedback. Okay, guys, thanks.